into the first episode of Coach Craig Goes Back to College, which is a phrase that I probably never thought I was going to be saying at any point since graduating college. Didn't really think I was going back, but here we are. We're going to be talking of college football for week number 0 over on the Sports Affiliate channel. You can also check out my YouTube channel over at Coach Craig Sports. First of all, welcome in for anybody that is joining. Kind of this series in totality, what I'm going to be doing with this is going to be looking at a prospect or two every single week, guys that I think are going to be going a little bit more under the radar, kind of my game of the week, and then my favorite prop of the week overall. So this is going to be the way that at this point in time, the internet's being really slow. And I was having some difficulties as we first ultimately ended up starting. So do apologize. So I'm just going to write in the comments here too, dealing with some lagging issues right now. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I do apologize for that, first of all. Second of all, so I'm going to jump into it right away with the game of the week, excuse me. So there's only 2 games this week that are involving teams that are ranked at this point in time. There's like 7 games in total. The one with the closest spread is going to be Ohio and San Diego State. That is not the game that I'll be looking at this week. So the game that I have the most interest in the people playing in the game, first of all, is going to be San Jose State and USC. So USC is a pretty stacked team. Doesn't take too much to say that, with Caleb Williams at quarterback, a loaded wide receiver room with Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice, Dorian Singer, the transfer that was a high level transfer coming over to USC, and Mario Williams there as well. Relic Brown, who was playing some running backs and wide receiver last year, is listed at wide receiver on their depth chart. They got Taj Washington. They got Michael Jackson III. Loaded wide receiver room. They got some transfers coming in on the offensive line that should beef up that part as well. We got a transfer that we'll be talking about in a little bit in Marshawn Lloyd coming over from South Carolina. They have Austin Jones returning at running back as well. Those two splitting it. Should be a pretty good offense for USC. They got a lot of transfers on defense, a lot of new faces there too as well. So we'll see what that defense ultimately ends up looking like. So I'm very interested to see what that looks like. San Jose State, they return a lot of key players too. They had some guys graduate to the NFL. One of the guys that we'll be talking about is because his former teammate Elijah Cooks at wide receiver did ultimately end up go to the NFL. He was undrafted. I think he's in camp with the Jaguars at this point in time. So that is something that we'll be talking through. But this is the game that I'm really looking at the most this week. San Jose State and USC. USC is actually 31-point favorites in this game, which I think is a pretty high total for them, even being as good a team as they are. San Jose State is not a team that's going to completely roll over as opposed to some of these early other games. So I think there's a good chance that San Jose State can cover that 31-point spread. That's kind of where we're at right now, at least from the sports book that is connected to ESPN at this point in time. I've seen 30.5. I've seen 31.5 at different points throughout the week. So definitely do like them to cover. They got an experienced quarterback in Javon Cordero there. They got a good wide receiver that we'll be talking about a little bit in Justin Lockhart. A little bit banged up at this point in time with the arm injury, but he is projected to play. They got a little bit of experience there, so I don't expect them to roll over or anything else like that. So
for you,
excuse me. We're going. So give me another ad here too. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for the game of the week. I do apologize for the video kind of popping up in the background. We'll try to get rid of that for future weeks. But I'm just going to go right into the prospects that we'll be talking about just in general. So we're going to start off with Marshawn Lloyd. Hopefully this page loads properly for me. So he is the new USC running back. Oddly enough, he transferred from South Carolina, which is also USC. So he went USC to USC. He is a guy that was a former 4-star prospect out of DeMatha High School in the Maryland area. So pretty well-regarded high school there. They produced a lot of good college athletes, some even pro athletes at that level too. 5'9", about 215 pounds at this point in time, projected to run in the 4.5s. He is technically a redshirt junior at this point in time. Last year was the most run we've seen out of him in his college football career, where he was pretty productive, although he only ended up playing 9 games, 111 carries, 573 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, 18 receptions, 476 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. More of a bigger back, nothing that's going to be like a speed burner or anything else like that. I think him and Austin Jones are going to make quite the tandem. And when we're looking at a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, a guy that has a high pedigree, a former 4-star prospect, top 100 recruit, well regarded transfer as well, coming over to USC, if he can kind of stay healthy, which has kind of been the big thing for him throughout his college football career. First year when he was a freshman, he tore his ACL. And then last year he was dealing with a little bit of a quad injury as well. So if he can stay healthy this year, kind of prove that on the field, if he can even get close to 1,000 yards rushing, probably ultimately going to be a guy that gets drafted in day 3 of the NFL draft. So a guy to keep down the radar. We could have talked about a handful of USC players, Mario Williams, Caleb Williams, Brendan Rice. We could talk about Dorian Singer. There's so many different guys on this team that you could talk about, but I just want to highlight somebody that I think is going a little bit under the radar. Technically, he still could go back to school for another year and everything else like that. But I think if he puts it together a solid season, ultimately, going to be a day 3 pick in the NFL draft for 2024. So we're going to stop sharing his screen. We're going to talk about the other prospect that I do have, which is going to be a guy that I followed for a little bit of time now in Justin Lockhart. He originally started his college career at Nevada, so that is something that is worth noting. He bursted onto my radars initially watching the film for Carson Strong, Romeo Dobbs, and Cole Turner. When I was watching that tape, he's kind of like the third or fourth wide receiver. He's third wide receiver pretty much at that point in time, third or fourth, just kind of depending on how you were looking at it. He was a guy that did pop a lot on tape, though, a guy that was showing the ability to kind of just do a little bit of everything and do it pretty well, although he wasn't getting the same chances that some of the upperclassmen were at that point in time. He is 6'2", right around 200 pounds, just kind of depends on which site you look at. He's like another guy that's projected to run in the 4.5s in terms of the 40 time. He is a redshirt senior at this point in time. He is his 5th year of college football. He may or may not have another year left. Because technically it does say he played 5 games his freshman year. Usually you have to play 4 or under for that redshirt season. So I think it's his last college football year. I think it's going to be a really good one for him, though. Like I said, Elijah Cooks, graduated last year. He was their leading wide receiver. Justin Lockhart returns as the top leading wide receiver for San Jose State, coming back with the same quarterback in Chevon Cordero, who is a former Hawaii transfer. They're going to be some good chemistry there. I think it's going to be a pretty strong season and kind of the ultimate breakout season for Justin Lockhart. When we look at what he's kind of done throughout his career, really didn't play too much as a true freshman. 5 games, 5 receptions, 33 receiving yards. His 2020, he's relegated down the depth chart as a sophomore. 9 games, 27 receptions for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 1 carry for 9 yards. So was a little bit involved at that point in time. And then his last year in Nevada, 12 games, 35 receptions, 470 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's kind of where he flashed on film for me, or at least started flashing. He is a former 3-star prospect. I'll mention that as well. Out of California too. So I believe it's Gardenia Riviera or Gardenia Sierra. I can't remember off the top of my head, but wasn't highly regarded coming in, but has a good frame, good body at 6'2", 200 pounds, shown the ability to do a lot of things well. Doesn't really stand out in any one particular area, but when we looked at 2022, his first year at San Jose State, we got the 12 games, 36 receptions, 578 yards, which was a career high for him, 16.1 yards per catch, which was 3rd ranked in the Mountain West last year. And then he did have 1 receiving touchdown as well. So he's a guy that's kind of been on my radar for a couple years at this point in time. I think he's a guy that could be a solid day 3 pick. If he comes out, he has a decent season, he goes to the Senior Bowl, performs decently there, whether it's the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, any All-Star game, a collegiate All-Star game, could really put his name on the map as well. And just kind of a guy that probably not a lot of people are talking about at this point in time, but a guy that I do think has some decent potential. Probably not a high-end guy at the NFL level, but a guy that could be a solid wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 for an NFL team moving forward. So we talked through the game of the week. We talked through the top 2 prospects that I want to kind of mention at this point in time. Like I said, when you're looking at this week, there's a lot of different guys you could talk about, a lot of guys that probably are getting a little bit more publicity, but these are just the 2 guys I want to highlight. Even if you want to talk a little bit about the San Jose State quarterback in Chevon Cordero, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be an NFL level guy, but at least somebody to watch, can sling the ball around, run a little bit too. There's a good chance that he ends up in like the XFL, USFL, or even the CFL. So he's a guy that mentioned as well. But we're going to get off of here. We're going to go over to Prize Picks and talk about my favorite prop of the week. So I'm going to start sharing that screen over on Prize Picks. And this is what I'm going to do every week. I might add more than one prop at some point in time, but at this point in time, it's just going to be the one lone prop. So we have Ben Gura, who is the running back for Ohio. getting over 65 and a half rushing yards in totality. And so he had hit the over in 8 out of his 12 games last season. So looks like a pretty good one there. They're going to get San Jose State. San Jose State had a decent defense last year. They lost Fajoka to the NFL draft. Nehemiah Shelton went and played in the USFL. He was one of their cornerbacks, and now he did sign with an NFL team as well. They gave up about 110 rushing yards per game, which was 20th in the country. So a pretty respectable line, but but at the same time, I think Bagura is going to get enough carries in this game to get over this line. Like I said, he did hit this over in 8 out of his 12 games last season. So that's going to be one that really stood out for me. I like their quarterback, Curtis Rorick, as well. But, San Jose State was a little bit better in terms of stopping the pass as opposed to the run. But that's kind of what I do have in terms of everything for college football week number 0. This is Coach Craig Goes Back to College. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. If you have any other feedback, be sure to let me know, since this is a brand new show, and hopefully everything came through all right, because I know things were really lagging on my end towards the beginning of the show, even before I was getting in. But definitely do appreciate anyone that was tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you are a pretty big college football fan as well. Be sure to subscribe to the Sports Affiliation YouTube channel. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel over at Coach Craig Sports as well. Be sure to check out the Twitter for the Sports Affiliation and my own personal Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. If you want to talk college football anytime, prospects, anything else like that, feel free to reach out to me. In the future weeks, we'll be doing a little bit more graphics in terms of the prospects, game of the week, and everything else like that. Have it a little bit more prepared moving forward. But week 0, you got to kick it off somewhere. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed. And like I said, be sure to subscribe to the Sports Affiliation and my channel over at Coach Craig Sports. But with that being said, that's all that I do have for college football week number 0. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed college football for this week overall.